So hey guys, today we're doing a bit of a meta analysis. So what I've got set up here are a lot of the core cards of meta decks or popular decks, whatever. So I think we'll be seeing less of circular at least for the time being, since Bright exists anyways, you know. And of course we can't forget about this. I suppose you could argue that's a popular card as well. So right now, the top three decks worth consideration, the most consideration is, I guess, Runic Stun, and then Runic Sprite. I guess we can kind of pull those together because they run enough similar cards, but Runic Sprite, Runic Stun, and then there's like Twin Sprite, and then there is Branded and Sword Soul. And we're just going to quickly look through what they do, and let's see. So with Branded Fusion, well, I really did just call their deck Branded Fusion, but not wrong, am I? So Branded Despia, I guess, so their goal is just to resolve Branded Fusion. If they don't get to, their deck is basically useless. Yeah, so Ash Blossom takes care of that, but then we have to look at the Ash Blossom value, and Ash doesn't do Hyper a lot against like this. Not by itself, at least. So against like Sprite Blue, Sprite Jet, Live Twin, Lila, whatever, Piece of Kill, whatever. It actually stops the search for here, and I think that at least stops you from getting Scythe blocked, I believe, maybe? Maybe there's a line that they can take. We'll need to check that one, so we'll just put in this for now. And we have Piece of Kill here, or what? No. Well, let's just type in Evil Twin, that's easier. So I guess they do need to summon both Piece of Kill and Lila, and then they'll be able to use Lila's effect to like maybe trigger something like Scythe, it doesn't really matter, or trigger Degdus at Scythe and then pop like the Scythe. Very annoying. And then for Sword Soul, they can not only search, but they can just randomly open or have a Protos, and then they just Protos you, and then you're locked out. So I guess for a Sprite player, that would be annoying for you, because you do play Darks here, as you can clearly see, Darks. But this option is only there for going first. So going second into another player, Protos actually can maybe have a use. Dicey, but doable enough. Sword Soul has some random going second tools as well, but whatever. And also Ash Blossom doesn't have that much value here because Moyi, normal Moyi, reveal a Warm, whatever. They make Chizao, and then Chizao chain 1, Moyi chain 2. Pretty gross. And then they'll probably end on like maybe a bit of a Protos, some Protos action, some Blackout action, some Baron action, maybe. I don't know what they're feeling, but it's commonly Chizao Baron with like maybe a Blackout set. Emergence is at 3 anyway, so if we go look at this, oh whoops. So alright, so they have 3 of Emergence, and then they have 2 Long One, and then they have 3 of Moyi, 3 of Ecclesia, which doubles as Moyi, so they have like effectively 9 copies of Moyi in their deck, and then 5 copies of Long One, with Long One being this is searchable too, off of Chizao, of course. And Ash Blossom doesn't come into play at any point here. So then Ash Blossom actually can work on, I guess, specifically Ecclesia and Emergence, but with Moyi at 3 anyways, the odds of just raw drawing a Moyi are pretty high. So Ash Blossom, just specifically against their deck, like, just against most of these decks are not that great. The one it does the most damage to specifically is Branded. But there is an option that actually affects all of these aforementioned decks, all of these lists. The card that is relevant here is this one. And this has more value because it has an advantage over Ash Blossom. The only way your opponent is really negating an infinite impermanence is just, with these decks at least, is with either a negate or cross out. Like, for example, Sprite, Carrot, I believe, can negate impermanence. But negating impermanence isn't even that great for them, because Gigantic Sprite, specifically, this effect is during your main phase. You can activate this effect, and you just declare this effect. And the detach is not a cost. So detach one material from a monster you control, and if you do, special summon one level 2 monster from your deck. Also, neither player can special summon monsters for the rest of this turn, blah blah, whatever. So this effect, it actually detaches after, and the detach is required to activate the effect. So if you destroy Gigantic Sprite, or if it gets tributed, for example, the effect will not be able to activate. So, for example, if your opponent did indeed have Sprite, Carrot, and Gigantic Sprite on field, and you have Imperm, if you Imperm the Gigantic Sprite in this situation, they have to just let the negate resolve, otherwise the only target to tribute to negate the Imperm will be Gigantic Sprite, and then they're just straight up -1 off of that, an additional -1, I suppose, would be the perspective, and then they'd just be stuck with a single Carrot. So that's why I guess some people are running Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre is generally useful, but this has the advantage and upside of not being able to be hit by Called By. And also Infinite Impermanence, as always, you can use it going second or first. It's just like an additional interruption or monster negate. The effect to negate spell trap cards in the column, not really relevant a lot of the time, of course. It's very simple to play around. No one should ever really be getting hit by this in this day and age unless they have, like, amnesia. They have goldfish memory, short-term memory. What did I say again? Anyway. Yes, Called By. Called By actually works on Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, making it less favorable to Imperm, and Imperm actually does do something against all of these different types of lists, with no exceptions here, actually. It even helps you against Runic Stun, because you can disable the Tikaboo by negating your opponent's, probably Hugin that they will... There's a good chance they will control a Hugin or something of that capacity, so you can, like, not only get rid of your opponent's Hugin negate, like, you can also disarm Tikaboo for the turn to try to make your play, or whatever. Something like that, right? Well, I mean, I think you guys get it, but this doesn't actually have the ability to out skill drain, because if it does need to negate effect, so if it's already negated, then you can't really use the negate spell traps in the column part of your Imperm. So, although unfortunate, some runic builds are actually running skill drain. No comment on that one, but you'll just have to take my word for that one. So ideally, just to play around Protos to begin with. If possible, not playing a dark deck would do you a solid, because this actually allows... just Protos is actually such a disgusting floodgate. It actually stops Guardian Chimera from being summoned, and Mirror Jade as well. So Sword Soul having an option to go into this is pretty gross. And this is a Lingering Floodgate. So after this is activated, even if you manage to remove Protos, or you draw Impermanence for a turn, you have Droplet, whatever, you negate Protos, this card will still stop you from special summoning dark monsters. So, honestly, this should be banned, almost. I don't know. Still considering it, but yeah. So against Runic, though, people are putting in, for example, well, I think it's specifically Cyclone. Cosmic Cyclone. Cosmic Cyclone is a very much a one-for-one card. I don't think it's very good to run, so I'll just leave it at that. I mean, it still trades for cards, of course, right? And it does bypass protection from like stuff like Lord of the Heavenly Prison, so it has like some small amount of value, but it's still RNG. Like, you could have hit a completely dead back row, for example, if you're just randomly firing it off. It's not very good. Like, you could have been running a danger instead, might as well have been, in some cases, unless you're being strictly floodgated by like a rivalry and your opponent has Hugin. Then I mean, you need some non-destruction ways to out stuff. Speaking of which, just thought it'd be slightly worth mentioning. Sprite Elf. Your opponents can't target cards that this card points to with card effects. This stopped you from being able to imperm stuff that Elf points to. Yeah, that's a bit annoying, but it's not super big deal. Not the big dealio. But then, let's see. The option here, I think, is just straight up evenly matched is pretty decent. Because every Runic player, they don't have the brain cells. Yeah, I'm calling you Runic players out. So anyways, they usually set all of their floodgates that they have on hand at once. So if you resolve evenly, you should be pretty solid. You'll go like crazy plus off of evenly. And it bypasses Hugin's stupid protection, which is pretty great. But then, let's see, we have like Live Twins, all this, right? They do actually have a negate for evenly here, and a negate for evenly on the barrel on the floor. With Sword Soul against Branded, though, they don't have anything for this specifically. And this should be able to, let's see, what does this effect say exactly? If this fusion summon card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase of this turn. Yeah, I'm not sure if this applies through evenly. I'm just going to assume yes for now, but it might not, honestly. I'm not sure. Since it gets banished face down, it actually might not be able to. I don't know the ruling for that card specifically. But yeah, this does a good amount of damage to, like, pretty much everything here. But I mean, of course, they only have one spell trap negate with Sprite, and with Sword Soul, it's also the same. It's Baron here, and it is Carrot here. So if you can bait them out with something first and then hit them with the evenly, or you can just like Dark Ruler no more and then throw an evenly, you're pretty solid in both cases. Speaking of that, oh, right. Dark Ruler no more. No more Dark Rulers. This, in general, is fairly good here. It is not so good into, like, Branded, though, for example. Less good here. But I guess against Sword Soul, you could set up, like, the same kind of thing as well. But just in general, this is a very decent card. The only thing that really can deal with Dark Ruler no more is something that can actually chain to it, like a counter trap kind of card. Like, we'll just go with my favorite one, Numbers Protection. Numbers Protection, you can Numbers Protection against Dark Ruler no more. But all of these decks should have no such response to be using against Dark Ruler no more. for the most part, right? Yeah. So if you just use Dark Ruler no more, the only card I can think of that makes sense that would be able to stop it might be like a Crossout Designator. Assuming they are also running Dark Ruler no more, that might happen. But yeah, Dark Ruler no more, pretty good in this meta. And speaking of which, Ghost Ogre is also pretty good now that I think about it, because a lot of the normal summons that that sprites do, if you actually destroy them, then they won't be able to special summon their sprite, actually, because they need to control a or rank 2 monster. Unless they have Sprite Starter, which then it was to no avail. And then against Sword Soul, against if Moyi effect, then you can chain Ghost Ogre, and then they're just left with a stinky token that they can't do anything with. So then, against Branded, though, let me think. What does this do against Branded? Absolutely nothing. This doesn't help you against Branded at all. None of the cards will you be able to use this against Branded, but against also Gigantic Sprite effect, it detaches for effect, so if you chain Ghost Ogre, it does nothing, so it's effectively a negate and destroy, like the same as Gamma. Speaking of Gamma, Gamma actually is very good into specifically Sword Soul and Sprite in the same way, but a little bit better than Ghost Ogre to an extent. You can, for example, let's say your opponent normal summons a Pyrrha, and then you can, or Sprite Blue, whatever. Well, actually not Sprite Blue. Sprite Blue has no effect, but they just normal summon like level 2 monster, try to plus off before they get some card advantage, I mean, before they go ahead and go do their sprite stuff. Then you can like Gamma on that, and then it could stop their whole turn because they have no normal summon or way to get level 2 on field anymore to start their play. That might happen, and then you can just, well, I guess you're just winning in that situation, and you're just having a good time. So, let's see. There is also, even if you Dark Ruler no more, there's the small caveat, I guess, where you still will likely have to deal with smashers. I don't know why every Sprite player is just searching starter right now, like even after they resolve starter. But, yeah, well, I guess I assume they might be trying to summon Carrot or Red, depending on which they have, or haven't, I guess, got. Maybe that's what they're doing. I don't think that's what. I think Smashers is better because it plays around like Forbidden Droplet, Dark Ruler no more. Speaking of which, Droplet is just more situationally good because it depends if your deck can even play Droplet effectively anyways. Because Droplet, although Droplet, unlike Dark Ruler no more, and more like Impermanence, can also be used as an interruption on your opponent's turn, it's just not something you can actually utilize sometimes in some decks because you're just playing a not as good deck. Like, we'll say Zombies, for example. Zombies will use a lot of their hand cards, and then yeah, you'll end up getting pretty screwed over in those cases. But then once again against Branded, specifically against Branded opening or normal summon Aluber, you can Gamma on the Aluber, but Lubellion will be chain blocked and you cannot activate a Gamma. And so you're kind of a little screwed in that scenario. You cannot actually negate the Lubellion, so they'll still get the Mirror Jade, and there's no point in negating Mirror Jade because even if you negate Destroy Mirror Jade, it will still send the Albion as cost. So it's like doomed if you do, doomed if but if they specifically don't have Branded Fusion and they needed to resolve a Luber effect, Gamma's good in that case. So it's situationally good against Branded. Against Sword Soul, It's always good. Gamma against Moyi, Gamma against Longwon, whatever. Just Gamma and Moyi in general stops their line most of the time. The only continuation they have is specifically special summon Ecclesia, and then going into Taya and then Chizao, which is not nearly as good, but I mean, there's a good chance it stopped their entire line just from a Gamma on Moyi. So you're doing pretty solid with this option anyways. Speaking of which, just because Hugin is a card, certain cards have less value now. Raigeki is not necessarily one of them. Raigeki is still pretty decent, but it's not as good as arguably evenly because of this. For example, Super Poly is still decent value. So in this case though, they have a Sword Soul, Grandmaster Chizao, and Baron. They don't have like enough in common for you to be able to let rip a Super Poly. So no real value with the Super Poly here, unfortunately. But against like Sprite though, we have Sprite Blue, we have Gigantic Sprite, and these are okay Super Poly targets. You can probably just use Super Poly on them. Not much else to say. Depends on the exact end board, but it can come up, but it won't necessarily always be super relevant, I guess. So I suppose though, if you were to, let me think for a second. This is actually a fire, so that's annoying. I guess you can like, if they have a dark on field still, you can like get rid of mask this way. For sure, so it's not like it does nothing, and then you can probably beat over the Sprite since their stat lines are typically not that great. I believe red has like 1,800 defense, but that is all it's got going for it. Well, speaking of which, Scythe Block with Sprite is kind of the thing you have to deal with. So in an ideal world, you're playing a non-dark deck that doesn't use the extra deck, so, or doesn't necessarily need to use the extra deck. So that's a bit rough on you there, and dealing with interruption as well would be nice if you're able to, because there will be some interruption, or you have room for some board breaking. Well, I'm not sure what like archetype this is. I was just thinking that that would be nice. So, yeah. There's not much you can do about all of this, so... It is a pain, but I guess the lessons we can take away from this are evenly matched is pretty good. And also, you still have to run Ash Blossom most of the time anyways, because Maxx C is a card. Unless your deck doesn't, like, special summon or... doesn't do it very much, like Branded, I guess you're still probably going to be forced to run Ash Blossom, because for example, even Sword Soul, or like Sprite, they have to run Ash Blossom simply because Maxx C is a card, because let's count the summons, it's like Moyi, and then Moyi summon token, summon Chizao, that's 3 summons, 2 special summons, and then if they go Chizao, Search Blackout, they can pass on that, and that's a +1 for you. But if they extend the full combo, Longwon special summon, Longwon, actually let me check, Longwon effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can special summon 1 Sword Soul token. Yeah, you get 2 draws off of Longwon actually, and not just 1, so that's 4, and then Baron for the 5th, so it's like +5, and then assuming you go Protos as well, that is actually 6 summons, so your opponent, it goes like +5 cards off of Maxx C, so they start off with twice as many cards in their starting hand. And then like with Circular, I guess, I'll just forget this exists mostly and just focus on Runic Sprite, Sword Soul. So you do need some kind of form of backrow removal in most cases. It sucks because against branded specifically, backrow removal isn't necessarily that great, but they do run stuff like Imperm called by, so if you can just snipe those off the bat, you're doing better and you won't have to play around those at the very least. And I guess that's about how it goes for like if you were running something like a Harpy Feather Duster. Speaking of which, even if you run a Harpy's Feather Duster, is there a comma on this or something? Yes. Harpy's Feather Duster with a comma. Alright. So, Heavenly Lord exists, prison, or Lord of the Heavenly Prison? Heavenly Prison Lord? I don't remember. So, since that's a card, the value on cards like Lightning Storm and Duster are surely falling off right now, so running them not necessarily the best. And Hugin. Reducing this to a nothing burger. Hugin doesn't even have a heart once per turn, and they're drawing more cards, allowing them more opportunities to draw into runic cards, allowing them to protect against your like destruction effect, which in this case would be like a Duster. Truly tragic, not much you can do. But let's see. So in this case, Sword Soul is the only one that Nibiru is good against, for example. So Nibiru not necessarily that great, because Gigantic Sprite actually stops you from being able to Nibiru, and it's so damn easy to play around Nibiru as the Sprite player. So not much you can do about that one. Nibiru not the play there. Branded summons like 3 times total on their turn. And then on your turn, they'll summon like 3 times as well, I think. So, really doesn't do much for you. Nibiru, nope. So only good against Sword Soul. So, Nibiru, not necessarily recommended. So, Dark Ruler, no more Droplet. I guess those are high value here. You just need a way to deal with your opponent's board as quickly and efficiently as possible. And I guess those cards do it. I guess the other thing would be stopping them from setting it up, but I don't see any easy way to do that. Let's see, for Branded, they don't have to even banish any cards, do they? So, let me think. Is this not the name of the card? Yes, Chaos Hunter. So Chaos Hunter works decently against Runic, because if Special Summon Hugin, Special Summon Chaos Hunter. But the issue is you still have to deal with these floodgates. If you're playing Chaos Hunter, it can actually still be problematic. But I mean, it does literally nothing against Sword Soul, because Baron will just remove your Chaos Hunter. And against Sprite, that will only maybe stop like Sprite Smashers. Not super high value. And you do have to discard a card, so you're trading 2 cards to special summon the Chaos Hunter. I do have a Royal one though, and I still can't justify playing it. This actually won't stop the summoning of Protos then, but it will stop like the runic cards from being able to activate to when they're specifically attempting to use the first effect, because the banish is actually required to activate the effect. So if, for example, you don't have 3 cards in your deck, then Runic Slumber can't activate, or whatever. But yeah, this will stop the entire Runic package, although they can still special summon and loop like Hugin, Gary, Jerry, whatever. And then there will be like a Tikaboo or whatever, and you'll still need a non-destruction way, probably not a monster anymore, to remove like the floodgates, which is still really relatively annoying. So then how about the adventure package? Well, it's been butchered so hard, I don't think that's a good option. And they can just banish the token easily, and then still pop 2 with like Branded, and Blackout pop 2 as well with this. Not necessarily doing the best. The Draco Bag being able to return Floodgates and or like Fountain is pretty good for the cost of like 1.5-ish cards, I guess. And you already have to be playing a deck that can run these pretty well. So it's not by any means like a super easy way to do this, but like, I don't know. So honestly, I'm just hoping Hugin is put to 1 at this point. Like, Fountain isn't even that much of an issue, surprisingly. The issue is Hugin stopping you from removing everything, because for some reason Hugin just protects everything from destruction. It's literally a Dingirsu, like, bruh. And it's just a 1 card to summon. As quick effect. Actually insanely aids. No easy solution for this, but Scythe Lock being available as well, so you have to play around that technically, if you can, or you just have a hand trap to stop it, I guess. Because Dark Ruler No More can probably stop this as well as this during the main phase. Yes, only during the main phase. So you will get priority to Dark Ruler No More first. And that should be fine, I believe. And there should be no way for Scythe to resolve if you have Dark Ruler No More. Because Scythe should not be destroyed in the first place in this case. Well, yeah. That's about how this all goes. So, pretty rough overall still, having to deal with these floodgates as well, potentially. So you still need to find a way to kind of balance some backrow removal out here. Not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And there is no way to like have backrow removal so fast that like Branded can't activate their cards to summon the Mirror Jade and Chimera back. This effect is also pretty annoying. The destroy all monsters your opponent controls effect here. If you out the Mirror Jade. Most ways, I guess. That's pretty obnoxious. But just for the fact that Branded doesn't floodgate you, Branded is probably going to be the easiest deck to deal with here. And that fact that their entire line can be stopped by a single Ash Blossom, somehow Branded seems the most fair here. Won't go too much into Branded, but yeah. And then Hugin's just, yeah, Hugin's Skyates, and then Sword Soul. Sword Soul's interactions and stuff, they're kind of stoppable at least with, like, for example, an Imperm to Moyi will also do it most cases. But then you're kind of stuck because of now we have Sprite as well. There's not a super easy way to deal with Sprite, but Ghost Ogre does have arguably some more value in some cases, but not so much in others. Impermanence being able to affect all of these decks, in my opinion, gives it more value than like a Ghost Ogre. So I suppose Impermanence will be very high value. And if your deck can play it Forbidden Droplet or Dark Ruler No More, and then like 3 of Evenly, and then like some copies of Ash Blossom called by, will probably be my lineup of generics, I guess. Once I start playing the next ranked season, that's probably what I'll be going for. But alternatively, a lot of these are actually trap effects. This doesn't target specifically Branded, but everything else for this, we have like Blackout here, and then we have all these floodgates here. Red Reboot can stop all of them from activating, and this is a counter trap, so they have to return fire with another counter trap to be able to deal with your Red Reboot. So Red Reboot has some value if this strategy ever becomes up, like, super played again. Really obnoxious. Not much you can do. So, anyways, to summarize once again, Impermanence, high value. Ghost Ogre, still decent value, right? And I guess you can respond to Guardian Chimera with Ghost Ogre. But then, even then, Ghost Ogre doesn't have that much value. Well, I mean, it still has some value, but Branded Opening can actually protect from destruction. So against Branded Despia, maybe not the best. So yeah, Droplet, Dark Ruler, no more, can do you some good, but let's see. Since Protos isn't something you can as easily deal with, just try not to play like a dark deck that can manage all these things, and I think you're pretty solid if you can fit these generics in. So yeah, you still have to deal with Maxx C after all of this stuff, but for your sake I hope you can, and yeah, that'll be it from me here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.